President Biden has announced his plans to run for re-election in 2024. If he wins, he will be 82 when he takes office and 86 when his term ends, which would establish him for a second time as the oldest person to assume the US presidency. Donald Trump, will be 78 during the 2024 election, will be 82 if he is re-elected and wins White House and at the end of his term. President Biden is a healthy 80-year-old male, according to a February report from the White House physician Dr. Kevin C. O'Connor. Although he was recently treated for basal cell carcinoma, a common and slow-aging growing skin cancer, Mr. Biden has no major medical problems, doesn't smoke or drink, and exercises at least 5 days a week. President Biden opened just recently his 2024 re-election campaign by casting Republicans as danger to democracy and abortion rights, while the GOP countered that the president contest would pivot on the faltering economy and Mr. Biden's age. Mr. Biden formally launched his bid for a second term on Tuesday, April 25th with a video announcement, a declaration that puts him on to the path to a potential rematch with the man he beat in 2020, former President Donald Trump. The 2024 campaign will play out in an era of political polarization, with both parties fighting over a small number of battleground states and the narrow slice of the electorate that isn't firmly in one camp or another one. The 3-minute video opens up with images of the June 6, 2021 attack on the US Capitol and references the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe vs. Wade before Mr. Biden says the word freedom, pointing to the American value as the key to his first term. Already the oldest president in American history at 80 years old, Mr. Biden would be 86 at the end of his second term. A majority of Americans don't approve of his performance as president, and polls show ample public concern, even among many Democrats, about his age and fitness for office. Mr. Biden has answered questions about his age by saying that people should watch him do the job. Aide says his legislative records, including securing funding for the COVID-19 pandemic and passing broad infrastructure and climate measures, will resonate with voters. As per the article in New York Times, here is a head-to-toe snapshot of the body and mind of an octogenarian and the potential problems doctors look out for. First is brain. Most healthy people in their 80s don't have trouble performing complex tasks such as problem solving and planning, but they may find it harder to multitask and learn new things. Some may struggle to remember words. Reaction time can also slow, but usually only slightly, on the order of fractions of a millisecond. Scientists don't know exactly why these changes happen, but the brain does get slightly smaller with age because of brain cells loss, so that could be playing a role. Dementia does become more common with age, but it still only affects a minority of adults in their 80s. In US, 10.9% of adults aged 80 to 84 and 18.7% of adults aged 85 to 89 dealt with dementia in 2019. Second is eyes and ears. Vision tends to worsen over time. Octogenarians often need reading glasses and become more sensitive to glare. And adults over 80 have cataracts, a clouding of the lens of the eyes, but the condition can be treated effectively with surgery. Age-related hearing loss is another common problem. First, people lose the ability to hear high-frequency sounds such as bird chirps and alarm clocks. This can start early, even in the person's 30s or 40s. Low-frequency changes affecting the ability to hear men's voice and bass sounds in music come later. Hearing loss can be treated with hearing aids, now available over the counter or other devices. Third is heart and lungs. As person ages, heart rate slows slightly, and the heart can't beat as fast during physical activity, which can make aerobic exercise more challenging. That's being said, an aging healthy heart typically functions quite well, and doctors monitor for heart disease in their octogenarian patients anyways. According to the American Heart Association, 83% of men and 87% of women aged 80 and older have heart disease, sometimes requiring the use of medications or surgery. Mr. Biden has an irregular heartbeat and takes medications for that, and he also takes Crestor to lower his blood cholesterol. Lung capacity often slightly drops with age because of changes in the strength and elasticity of the lung tissues and diaphragm, which can make that breathing a bit harder. One disease doctors look out for is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, an inflammatory lung disease seen in just under 80% of people 65 and over. Next is digestive system. People in their 80s tend to eat less than they used to, in part because food doesn't taste quite the same. Over time, people lose taste buds and their sense of smell, both of which affect how much they enjoy eating. This explains to why older adults have an increased risk of nutritional deficiencies. But seniors also need fewer calories than younger people because of losses in lean muscle mass and slowing metabolism. According to the government's dietary guidelines for Americans, women aged 60 and older should consume a minimum of 1,600 calories a day, and men aged 60 and older a minimum of 2,000 calories a day, as opposed to a minimum of 1,800 for women and 2,400 for men ages 19 to 30. Older people are at a greater risk for the heartburn and gastrointestinal reflux. Mr. Biden's occasional coughing and throat clearing are tied to gastroesophageal reflux, and he takes a Pepcid, which is the drug famotidine, as it needs to treat his symptoms. Octogenarians digest food more slowly too. Research suggests that 34% of women and 26% of men aged 84 and older experience constipation. With regards to bones and joints, bones become more brittle with age. The body starts to reabsorb the minerals that strengthen them, such as calcium and phosphate, in part because the intestines cannot absorb what is needed for that food. Decreased bone density puts older people at an increased risk for bone fracture and osteoporosis. In 2020, when Mr. Biden was the president-elect, he had a hairline fracture in his foot, requiring him to wear a walking boot as he healed. The bone injuries that doctors worry about most are hip fractures, which requires hospitalization in more than 300,000 Americans over the age of 65 every year. Joints can also become more painful because the bones and cartilage that make up the joints start to wear it down. Regarding the skin, the risk of skin cancer increases as people get older. The average at which Americans are diagnosed with melanoma, a potential deadly skin cancer, is 65. Men are at higher risk for melanoma than women. And regarding the strength and balance, most healthy people in their mid-80s can and should engage in physical activity, and many remain strong and agile. But adults start to lose muscle mass and start to gain fat as they get older. Between 40 and 60% of people in their mid-80s can have a disease characterized by loss of muscle mass and strength. Common symptoms will include difficulty walking, exceeding stairs, and holding shopping bags. In some older adults, the insulating layer that surrounds nerves and helps them communicate with one another starts to break down. This can slow reflexes and make people clumsy. Regarding the stress, stamina, and sleep, people in their mid-80s tend to have lower energy than younger people. That's understandable, so they fatigue more easily. Many older adults don't sleep well, in part because they spend less time in deep, slow wave sleep, which makes them more prone to middle of the night wake-ups. 80 years old tends to sleep about an hour less than the younger adults. Still, it is important to remember that everybody ages differently, then that the age does not define a person's health. Many people in their 80s are healthier than people 20 years younger. And research suggests that adopting healthy behavior, even in their 9th decades, can extend one's life.